are back with part 2 of the Great Concavity's Best of 2020, and we're excited to be joined by Chris Ayers. Chris, welcome back to the show, man. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me back. I think this is my third time.
I think you're right. I think you were episode 5, if I'm not mistaken, and then episode 17.2.
Ooh, you had to give me prime numbers, which serves. I hate. But thanks.
Longtime friend and recurring guest on the show, Chris Ayers. You're probably very familiar with his visual work. He is the great mind behind Poor York Entertainment and Chris Ayers Creative, which is his solo design company, animation, visual, graphic. What else do you do, Chris?
That's a lot of it. Some illustration. I basically like jack of all trades type, which makes it kind of hard to market yourself. But yeah, I get bored doing one thing repeatedly, so I try to branch out.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And speaking of that, you have branched out into becoming a denizen of a new country since the last time we spoke to you. Finding yourself actually quite close to me these days. Where are you at right now?
We're in North Vancouver. So in the same province as you, but yet so far away.
One of us. One of us.
It's a little disorienting to be on the other side of the concavity. I'm gonna have to get used to that.
Yes, you're convexity right now, my friend.
I'm proud to say,
we welcome you to the team.
I have never been to Canada. I'm proud to say.
Yeah, we got to change that. Okay, so when 2020 and the pandemic's over, we got to get you up here to visit Chris and I and Tim Person.
I've heard
a good little Wallace enclave happening in Victoria.
Jeff Severs too, right?
He's in Vancouver, but we can get him over here for a weekend, I'm sure.
I've only heard bad things about Canada, so I'm out. Count me out.
Well, I'm sure we'll get to this because Chris is our screen specialist in terms of television and movies is what we're going to be talking about with Chris, Best of the Year. If you watch The Handmaid's Tale season, was it 3 or 4 this year? That, I swear, is basically just PR for the country of Canada being amazing. Like, there is one episode where people are getting like, they're coming to Canada as like a safe haven, and there's this huge Canadian flag in the airport hangar, and it's like, it's ridiculous.
I felt like a refugee. I don't think the border guards saw it that way, but I was able to immigrate because I'm married to a Canadian. But yeah, I get it. I haven't watched Handmaid's Tale season 2 or 3, though. I just watched the first one.
Okay, yeah. Sweet.
So welcome to Canada, Chris, and welcome back onto the Great Concavity.
Man.
Year end, obviously, 2020 has been one big, long shit show. Before we get into your year-end list of best movies, TV shows, comic books, I'd be curious to hear if you have any of those. Just overall, do you have any words of you'd like to share about the year?
Wow, haven't even. That's
Personal
a big thing to hit me with.
Lowlights.
It's just for me personally, the move has gave me something to look forward to. So I feel like I had that light at the end of the tunnel. Mm-hmm. But also, it's like been the most trying, probably 6 months of my life because it's taken that long to sell the house and renovate the house, do the immigration, and sell everything that I couldn't take. So the second half of this year has just been like every second of the year I had something to do. I could barely relax. So it's only been the last couple of days.
No downtime.
I've been stuck in this quarantine where I really can't do anything. So I've been able to sort of relax. But yeah, crazy year for me. And as far as like reading stuff, man, I just read comfort stuff, like rereading Stephen King and some old Star Wars books from a teenager. Like I haven't even tried to challenge myself. I just didn't have the brain space for it.
Yeah. I've heard some friends say that this year has been like a really lame year for reading for them because like it's just really hard psychologically to focus, to sit in silence and just focus on words on a page, which I think is so legitimate this year. Like there's a lot of brain space
for sure
being taken up by anxiety and things. Yeah.
My routine almost every day was to like go out to lunch somewhere and just sit in a cafe and read by myself. That's my favorite thing. Like that hour a day that I have to myself. And I kind of need that distraction of all the din of the noise to let me focus. And it's really hard to read at home.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, congrats on successfully crossing the border. You're one of us. Let's talk. Do you want to talk about TV or movies first, Chris?
I definitely watched more TV this year, and any other year I wouldn't be the guy you would talk to about TV. It was not really my thing. But sometime in like December of 2019, I actually said out loud, I wish I had more time to catch up on all these TV shows. And it's been like one hell of a monkey's paw wish that I got. It's just
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So one of the reasons I asked you on for this, Matt, and I thought of you, is you posted a very extensive list of your favorite TV, ranked by distribution. So Amazon Prime, Apple TV, etc. You posted this on Facebook last month. There's probably, what, 40 titles, I would say, 40 titles of shows that you watched this year?
I didn't even count because I was kind of like too embarrassed to have watched that much television in a year. I'm not proud of this.
I don't think anyone's judging you in
not
2020. I watched a lot of TV this year as well. You're fine, sir.
Cool. We actually found ourselves at the beginning of the year, my wife and I, with all this time and like all these things we wanted to watch.
Mm-hmm.
We literally wrote them all down on a hat. Like we just drew them out of a hat at random. And it was hard to even make a decision. Like it was just too much mental labor to make a decision. So we just made it random.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we watch stuff. But yeah, we got to catch up.
That's a great way to do it.
Catch up on a lot of stuff from mid to late last year, and then all the new stuff that came out this year. I don't know where you want to start, but I mean, I kind of put them in alphabetical order by platform.
I love it. Let's talk about like what were your main highlights. So I don't know if you want to go through like top to bottom on your list, but like what were your favorite standout shows this year? And I think we have quite a bit of overlap, so
cool. We
can riff as we go along. Some of your stuff I haven't seen though, so.
Well, I'll be remiss if I didn't add this one that I didn't put on my list from last month, but I forgot we had watched Better Call Saul season 5 earlier this year.
Oh, okay.
We just like straight up paid the $25, whatever it was, for just that one show. Totally worth it. Are you guys a fan of Better Call Saul?
I've only watched like 8 episodes of season 1 like years ago. And for whatever reason, I just like kind of forgot about it and never went back to it. But I've been meaning to go back and like just do the whole thing. And I've heard that it's really good.
Some people, I don't know if this is hyperbole, say it's the best show on TV, and they say it's like way better than Breaking Bad. I can't really argue. I can't mount a good argument against that. But yeah, it's
wow, okay.
It's fantastic. It's not the same show as Breaking Bad. It's just some of the same people, some of the same characters, and they've really mastered shooting in Albuquerque, which is not an attractive place, like downtown Albuquerque. You know, we did the self-guided Breaking Bad Better Call Saul tour a couple of years ago and drove around, and it's like amazing how they make these places look, and they're not really pretty. So
yeah. So is it it's prettier or less pretty than Phoenix, would you say?
It's about the same.
As a former resident
honestly.
of Phoenix, it's about the same.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say Phoenix is way better.
I'd say the surroundings, like at least the forest around, Albuquerque and Santa Fe is probably more attractive than Phoenix is. But
okay,
it's similar.
Just pure desert.
Anyway, I would definitely recommend that if you haven't. But of course, it's 5 seasons in. I'm going to throw some ones out there that I don't think most people have really, gotten a chance to watch. One was on Amazon Prime. It's a sci-fi anthology show called Tales from the Loop.
I saw a bit of that this year.
Yeah.
I think I watched 5 or 6 episodes. Yeah.
I feel like that when the way that it's sort of world building and it's all these little vignettes, each episode is a different character, a character that might have been a background character in the previous episode. So you get the sense of this community. Right. And I think like what I like about David Foster Wallace's writing, or at least in Infinite Jest, is like sort of that building, that patchwork of the community as a larger picture, not necessarily one narrative. But so that really resonated with me a lot, and also reminded me of Krzysztof Kieślowski's Decalogue, my favorite filmmaker. Decalogue was a Polish TV series from the 80s where he does one episode per each one of the 10 Commandments. So it had kind of this poetry to it that reminded me of Decalogue alike, which I like. But the premise is it's a small town that's built on top of some kind of government research facility. I don't even know if it's government. It's maybe a private enterprise, but
right, yeah.
They call it the Loop, and most of the people, are associated with the some way, work there or are affected by it. And it's just kind of weird, Twilight Zone-esque, strange things that happen because of this science experiment in the small town.
Yeah.
So
right. It's a lot of like 80s robotics kind of stuff.
Yeah, it does feel
like
80s
retro,
kind of like Soviet brutalism kind of stuff in there too, like the way things look. And a musical score by Philip Glass too, if that interests you.
Yeah, it does very much interest me. That was one of my main latch-on points to get there to that show. Absolutely.
I've just really come to appreciate a self-contained episode, like a show, because this has 8 episodes and done. It's not a huge commitment. I just can't sit down and watch a 20 episode like network TV thing anymore. I'll tend to pick things that they're short, like reading a book, or a long movie. And
I think the BBC kind of nails this idea, right? Like they do like 6 episode seasons, and a show is usually not more than like 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, that's my thing.
And there's something kind of nice and succinct about that. In North America, we're like, nah, give us like 11 seasons of The Office, 25 episodes a season. Really drag this thing out,
Well, it just becomes a money machine for a lot of them, like Lost. Lost could have been great if they hadn't had to drug it out. It became the top show on TV, so you can't kill the cash cow.
Yeah,
you have to let it keep going.
Exactly. And I'm also not paying out on the American Office, although I hated it at first compared to the British one, but I came to love it, and I celebrate the series, but like 11 seasons is a long time to be sitting with that office environment.
For sure.
No, you're fucking blasphemy. No. I think
I celebrate it. I just said I celebrate it.
But with that kind of a show, it's different. Like, it's not trying to achieve anything. It's just building characters and building worlds. And what Chris just made me think of with Tales from the Loop is like Russian Doll, which was on Netflix last year, which is like very short, self-contained. The whole thing is like 8 episodes.
Yeah.
I take your point on The Office, though. It's become like the millennials' comfort TV, in the way the character was it Gately's dad who watched MASH until he expired, in Infinite Jest.
Is it Gately's dad?
Which character was that?
I don't. Yeah, who is that? It's been like a few years since I read Infinite Jest cover to cover, so I'm like.
I really like the British baking show as my comfort TV. I really like the British baking show. That's my comfort TV.
Nailed it?
No, that's not as good. It's not as good.
Speaking of like short self-contained things, I'd also add Good Omens. That was from 2019, but I still got a chance to catch up on that this year. I've been a little intimidated into where to get into Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
I watched some American Gods last year and the year before. And it's a bit intimidating to get into that universe.
There's just too much. I don't know where to start. And someone said, well, just start with Good Omens. Read the book. So I read the book immediately before watching the show. And I really enjoyed it. It's only 6 episodes. Again, short, to the point. It's about basically the apocalypse. An angel played by Michael Sheen and a demon played by David Tennant are trying to avert the apocalypse. Just this, small middle-class town in England. It's very funny.
Okay. I like Michael Sheen. I've not watched it. I've heard it, like I've seen it get panned pretty hard, so now I'm really curious to watch it based on your positive recommendation, because I think we tend to agree on most of this kind of stuff.
Well, this is my first experience with Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, so I could be way off, and the hardcore fans were right.
I've never read any Terry Pratchett, so I've only played the board game of Discworld, which I thought was great, but that's all I know, so...
Well, anyway, this is a really short commitment too, so it's not like it's only 6 hours, so
not
that big of a deal. You're not wasting a lot of your life.
Pretty easy. Yeah. Does it kind of have similar themes to The Good Place? It sounds kind of in that same kind of imagined theological realm.
Yeah, there's some scenes that feel like The Good Place. There's a sort of an afterlife where angels, kind of have meetings and stuff like that. It's just like a little bureaucratic, it's just the absurdity of this, taking something that is like the biggest thing of like mortality and the end of the world and making it sort of absurd. That's right up my alley.
Yeah. Is it kind of like Wings of Desire, but like the comedy version?
Yeah, Wings of Desire is too serious. I love that film, but not quite.
That's good. All right.
Also, Undone on Amazon Prime.
I did watch that. I love that show.
Oh, you did? This is on my list. I've heard good things about this.
Matt, do you want to explain that one?
So it's sort of rotoscoped, right? Like it was filmed live action and then animated over the animation. And it's about a woman who is kind of stuck in a time loop, right? And she is her father is played by Better Call Saul guy, right? What's his name? Bob Odenkirk. And it's also what I loved about this, set in San Antonio. I mean, I think Rosa Salazar is the main character. She is a great actress, and I love the stuff in the show about like quantum entanglement and trying to get out of it. Didn't you recommend this to me, Dave?
I have seen this
I feel like
show.
you recommended this to me.
Yes. Okay. So what happened is my file. So I as soon as we recorded our last year in review, I start a new Word file and I just add everything to it that I watch and read and listen to and whatever. And it lost like a lot of stuff this year. Like, the cloud lost half of the save file. So I had to just from memory try and remember what I had watched, and Undone was on it, and now I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
that show is awesome. Okay, carry on.
This was technically September of 2019, so it was not this year, but I only caught up to it this year. So
totally, yeah. It's just we always do whatever you watched this year or read this year. It's fair game. It kind of reminded me of like Waking Life, the Linklater film.
Yeah, same style.
Just the spiritual.
I think it's more cohesive than
ethereal.
that, though. It's
definitely more cohesive. It's a story that's like vignettes, conversational. Yeah, that show was great, and also very short, right? Like, was it 6 or 8 episodes?
8.
Did you say
8 30-minute episodes?
8.
So
yeah,
very doable.
Yeah, so it's a short.
But I think they're going to make a season 2 of it. I just saw
nice.
This year they're going to do it again. I follow Rosa Salazar on Instagram. Big fan. It's partly set in San Antonio. I think it's mostly set in San Antonio.
Right.
Not many TV shows set in San Antonio. I love San Antonio. I'm glad you brought that up because I don't remember exactly when I watched that, but I do love that show. It's a great show.
Cool.
Oh, I'm thinking of a show called The Undoing is on my list to watch. An HBO show.
Okay.
That I've heard is
yeah,
good.
not the same
Undone
show.
And The Undoing. This looks like more of a drama. Featuring Nicole Kidman. No one's seen it? Okay.
I haven't seen it. All right, so I kind of want to talk about Apple TV as a platform because I don't know how many people have access to it. We only got it because we got a new phone. You get like a year free.
Yeah, that happened to me too.
Have you watched anything on it?
So I've really only watched Ted Lasso is one show that I've watched from it. And there's not a lot of other stuff on it that really jumps out at me so far. But I really like Ted Lasso.
So that's what I thought. I was like, I'm not going to pay for this. Nothing really appeals to me. And then I actually started digging around and finding good stuff we like. And it's funny because it launched last year around the same time that Disney Plus was launching. And I think people were just overwhelmed with too many platforms. And just didn't have the bandwidth to even like consider it. And about a week after it launched, the head of like programming and like show development resigned. So it looked like a really bad launch. And most of the shows got like middling to poor reviews, I think. So it's like there can't be much good on here. And actually it ended up being like really nice surprise what we did find. The morning show, which is an incredibly expensive show to produce, which is about $300 million to make 2 seasons. And mostly that's the cast. That was their flagship launch show.
Yeah, because Steve Carell.
Yeah. Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, Billy Crudup.
Yeah, I watched that this year too.
Yeah. So you watched the morning show?
What was your takeaway from that show? Yeah, did you like it overall?
Yeah, I was surprised. And as someone who worked for about 18 years in the TV business, including on a morning show in like a really large TV market, I found a lot of it just like just the logistics of it and like to be kind of true. It felt honest about some things. I mean, I didn't work at this level where it's, like the Matt Lauer kind of level that, that Steve Carell's story is kind of based on. But I really like this. I was surprised. I thought Steve Carell is like maybe the only human on the planet you could get to play that role where he's at the same time despicable but also like charming. You could turn like a switch.
Yeah, totally. I felt really conflicted by this show. It's a show that explores the Me Too phenomenon of, wealthy, powerful, famous TV personality who can exploit women. And it kind of wants you to, it humanizes him, and it wants you to like have sympathy for him. It does it in something of a nuanced way, but I felt really uncomfortable with what they were trying to do with that, to like kind of make him a hero, but also at the same time they're showing like the ways in which his life completely like was blown up by this event.
Right. I mean, it's his fault. He did the things, right? He did bad things.
He
right?
did the shitty things. He deserves the backlash and everything melting down around him. But it wants you, I feel like it wants you to like to be there with him through it, and I just don't know if I want to.
To me, the fascinating part is like the people who enabled it too. Like the Jennifer Aniston character, like she knew it was going on and she kind of enables it.
Yeah,
because it's part of the culture.
That is a cool feature of it,
right? It's very honest about like what that's like.
Yeah.
The sexual harassment stuff within the TV stations. I found it to be pretty honest, and it is difficult, but it was also I thought just really great performances. And it was nuanced writing, and I'm really curious to see what they do with season 2, because they've paid for it already. This show.
Oh, there's going to be a season 2 of that. So I did not know.
They put up Apple put up $300 million to produce 2 seasons of this show. It's about $15 million per episode, which is about like what an episode of Game of Thrones costs. So that's.
Oh my gosh! Really?
They sunk so much
that's
money
shocking.
into this.
Wow.
I just expected it to be bad based on how much money they put into it for some reason. I thought it was pretty good.
Right, totally. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting that you get like the perspective of all of the stakeholders involved in a situation like that.
I gotta say, at some point during quarantine, my debit card got compromised, and so I had to change my login and password. I mean, my payment information for every single streaming service that I pay for, and the one that I stopped, I just never update was Disney Plus, because I was like, I'm just gonna see how long my kids go without noticing that I haven't like updated the payment information on Disney Plus, and they still have not noticed. But I don't have Apple Plus, even though I have like, Apple TV, even though I have like every other Apple device, but I pay for, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, and HBO Max. My sister-in-law works for HBO Max, and so I'm very, very biased towards like HBO originals.
Well, they're very good too.
They're very good, and their archives are amazing. And like, Katie, if you're listening, I love you, and I only watch HBO Max. I don't watch any of this other trash that you're talking about, like on Apple TV.
Based on their news from last week about releasing all the new films day and date on HBO Max, it's going to be the most valuable platform to have this year if you want to see these new movies like Dune. Definitely
by
gonna
far.
Watch Dune.
Except for now, Chris, you're crying because you're in Canada and you're not going to get to see those for like 6 months or whatever, 8 months after the fact. This is one of the bad things about Canada is our entertainment reach in terms of access. Distribution is awful compared to what Americans get to enjoy.
But you got new movies, right? I mean, you got like big blockbuster movies that come out around the same time, right?
Yes, but specifically with the movies that just got mentioned, like Dune and stuff, the platforms that are putting those out on the same day in theaters in the US as they are on the streaming services, that's not happening in Canada. Theaters will have those movies.
I think
it's going to be like a 6 to 8 month wait for some of those.
I think there are ways to get around that with technology.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are.
Email me after this episode. We'll see what we can work out.
Switcher for you.
You're a reviewer for the
CVN.
Hollywood Foreign Press, right? You're Hollywood Foreign Press. It's no problem. I gotta say, for HBO Max, the one show that they do that's original that I really love. I mean, I love all their shows, but again, you don't need a recommendation from me to go watch like, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Is How To with John Wilson, and
I've heard about
if you
this.
haven't seen the show, it is fucking unique. It is very bizarre, and I love it because it's like a guy with a homemade camera in New York City who's just sort of like writing an essay and making his one-man show. And like episode 1 is about like how to make small talk, and but really it has nothing to do with small talk. It's him just like following his mind wherever it goes. And like episode number 2 is like how to build scaffolding in New York City, and like he just talks to these people that he comes across. He's just filming everything in his life constantly, and it's like what MTV would have done in like the early 90s, like the type of creative freedom that they give someone. So I really recommend, if you get HBO Max, go check out that weird show, because that's something you're not going to see anywhere.
Yeah.
Super weird.
And it's produced by Nathan Fielder, right? Aren't you, David? Aren't you a fan? Nathan, for you?
I'm a huge Nathan Fielder fan.
Yeah. So
he produced this show?
Yeah, he's a producer.
Are you for real?
Yeah.
Oh
I haven't watched it yet, but I've been on the road for the last week, so I haven't had a chance to catch up on it. But yeah,
it's phenomenal. Go watch a couple of episodes of it, and I think you would be hooked in it. Just his voice comes across as like a one-man show, one man, one camera, and he lives in New York City, but he travels, and it's one of those things that like it starts out seeming one thing, and then it just goes completely off the rails into another thing all the time. And
I cannot wait for this. What's it called again?
How To with John Wilson.
How To with John Wilson.
And
great. I'm gonna watch it as soon as we get off tonight.
He's
that was definitely
phenomenal.
on my list.
So that's the only like HBO Max. I mean, I really love HBO Max because you can go into like the Turner Classic Movies channel. It's phenomenal. But I'm gonna shut up because I'm not an expert on this. Like, I'm really more of a reader. Chris, of the Netflix stuff that you did watch, like, again, besides Great British Baking Show, which I know is amazing, Queen's Gambit, what else on what's your Netflix look like?
I watched very little Netflix this year. I think that was like the thing we watched the most in the previous years, and I basically watched the Queen's Gambit, which I think everybody watched.
Yep.
I rewatched all of Community 1 through 6 seasons, because
what a great show.
My favorite sitcom. And I had not seen the last season because it was only on like Yahoo for a while, so finally got to wrap that up. But yeah, Netflix, not that much, honestly.
Yeah. I see that you watched Space Force, which is a show that I watched a few.
We're going to edit this out. Like... No Netflix. Sorry. Netflix is dead to me now. Fuck Netflix. Space Force is good though, right? It was good.
Not for me, man.
No.
It was a pass. It just was not funny. Just kind of lame.
I saw the trailer. It was phenomenal.
Yeah,
the trailer was great.
The trailer was good. The trailer was like, oh yeah, I'm in. I'm here for this.
And I mean, I'm a Steve Carell fan. Like, I mean, he won so many fans from The Office. Like, how can you not like him?
Yeah. Sure, love him. It's great.
Yeah, if you must see Steve Carell, I suggest The Morning Show and not Space Force.
Yeah, I did start a show called Moonbase 8 the other day. Have you guys heard of this? It's got John C. Reilly, Tim Heidecker, and the guy from Portlandia.
Fred Armisen?
Fred Armisen, yeah.
Is it good?
I only watched like one episode and it seems fine. But it kind of reminded me of like a more lo-fi version of Space Force.
Okay, so it's like
these guys who are like on a moon base simulator, and they're trying to like survive, and the water tank breaks, and it's kind of funny.
Oh, so they're not actually on the moon; they're just in a simulator.
Yeah, but they're hoping to get to the moon, but they're just like living through the simulation process first in training. But they're just kind of like dim-witted.
Okay. So it's like an Odd Couple kind of thing? Is it just like three clashing personalities in a small enclosure?
At first, but then there's 4 guys. One of them dies like in the first 10 minutes. He's just kind of a meathead football jock. But where it's going, I can see that it's maybe going to be cool. But I've only seen one episode, so.
Dave, what platform is this on? We're going by platform here.
I think it was on.
It's like Showtime.
I think I just found it through my cable, my Telus cable, on demand.
All right, let's go back to Hulu because I did
Crave probably.
I did want to talk about a movie that I loved on Hulu, which was Class Action Park.
I saw that. Yeah, that was fun.
That was hilarious.
I did not see that because Canada does not have Hulu.
What?
Sorry to break this to you, Chris.
What do you mean? You can't get Hulu at all?
We don't have Hulu in Canada.
You can't get like a VPN or something? Or like
you can get a VPN probably, but
can.
my mom's not going to do that. Like the average person's not going to have access to it.
I'm aiming not to be average.
Hulu sounds good.
All right, we're going to edit this out later, but Class Action Park was phenomenal, and it was narrated by John Hodgman. And it is, Chris Gethard? Chris Gethard?
Yeah.
He's one of the interviewees about this incredibly unsafe amusement park that existed in New Jersey in the 1970s, 1980s. And they have some archival footage. I really enjoyed this show. It was a one-off thing, and you could tell it was someone's pitch, oh, we should do a thing about this really crazy amusement park. But Hulu is a type of show or a type of network that would be like, oh, let's pick it up, let's just go produce that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was definitely fun. It's insane. I'm not sure you did it justice and how crazy this park was. They call it Class Action Park because people kept getting injured, and I think someone actually died. A couple people died. It's just
Several
a water park.
Died.
No.
Yeah.
It's a water park with no real safety, and it's this sort of libertarian guy that runs it. And
run by teenagers. Yeah.
He doesn't want any rules. He keeps flouting the local ordinances, and any business that's run by teens is probably bad thing waiting to happen. But this is insane.
It was dangerous.
Oh my gosh.
I really enjoyed that Class Action Park.
I'm seeing that HBO Max has it now, so maybe I can access it.
Man, just even talking to Canadians right now, I feel lost. I don't even know what kind of TV y'all have up there. It's just like Tim Hortons network. Exactly. It's you got gravy on
Tim Hortons network,
poutine network or whatever.
I have been Googling a lot of Canadian businesses. I learned today that Canadian Tire has a lot more than just tires. It has all kinds of stuff.
What?
I feel overwhelmed too.
Most things.
I feel so lost right now
in the universe.
I haven't been able to leave my apartment, but I'm very lost as to when I can go out, what I can do. But
Chris, you just text me anytime you have a question about this strange foreign planet you find yourself in, and I'll inform you to the best of my ability.
I appreciate it. I'm going to need it.
All
right.
What were your thoughts on Ted Lasso, Chris? You liked it?
Ted Lasso.
Going back to the Apple thing?
Yeah, so that was the reason people started talking about Apple this year. It took them almost a year.
Yeah, that's same for me.
Not the kind of thing I would have chosen to watch probably. I just had people kept talking about it. So we started watching it
it's just really charming, good feel-good comedy.
Yeah. I don't know how else to put it. Yeah. It's just it's just a ray of sunshine. It's not sarcastic. It's it's not ironic. It's just I feel like it's something that should have been made in the 80s maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of takes everyone, most of the characters in the show are in a way kind of unearnest compared to Ted Lasso, and he's this shining beacon of positivity and earnestness, and maybe the irony is surrounding him, that they are kind of incredulous that he can be this positive all the time, and that's kind of the conceit of the show. But then he kind of black holes everyone into that positivity around him, and by the end it's just kind of a big love-in,
And it's also a sports show, and I know nothing about soccer or football, whatever you want to call it. We didn't really mention the premise in which an American college football coach is hired to run a Premier League soccer team, basically so that the owner can destroy it in the UK. Yeah. So the owner the owner can destroy her husband's team, and
Yeah,
it's
her ex-husband's team.
Yeah.
It's a vendetta. It's a female revenge show, really, at the heart of it. What meets Friday Night Lights, where Coach Eric Taylor comes in and like clear eyes, full hearts it.
I mean, really, that's the plot of the movie Major League, right? It's like we have to.
I'm sure it's the plot of most. I love Major League.
We have to like tank the team. But
Yeah.
I did, read several things that compared it to the sort of sincerity that is associated with, the new sincerity often associated with David Foster Wallace. Just in that
Way to bring it back.
as again, I can bring anything back to this. But it was like mentioned in that context, right? Like Ted Lasso is not trying to be ironic about anything. It's not trying to do anything cynical. Like you're talking very sincere and heartfelt, and like especially maybe because it's a pandemic year, like a lot of people want that kind of like just raw, heartfelt emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think anything else was like that this year. I watched a lot of bummer shows this year, honestly, or sort of.
Yeah.
Horror. I mean, I watched a lot of horror movies just because I felt like this is the year of absolute terror.
Yeah, I honestly, I feel comfort in horror sometimes too. I would go to bed. I'd like read a Stephen King book before I go to bed because the horror of the real world is too much for me. But like the killer clown is comforting somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we get to this, we're not going to talk about this tonight, but I really liked a lot of, I feel like true crime is having a renaissance, not only in podcasts, but in like TV, documentary series. And maybe this is more of Netflix, which you didn't really get into, but like there's a lot going on with true crime and like people's fascination with, because they're stuck at home, like what's actually going on with actual crime. I feel like there's some connection there.
We're like missing crime.
What was the Patton Oswalt's wife's crime documentary this year?
I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Did you guys watch that?
I didn't. I think my wife watched it. I didn't watch it because I don't like true crime. But
okay, I watched a bit of it, and then it just got too dark for me. But Rachel kept watching it.
I did enjoy that.
Oh, you watched it, yeah.
And in general, like I say, I think people just went out of their comfort zone a little bit. Chris, is there anything that like this year you felt like was different for you in terms of like wanting to be out of your comfort zone? Maybe you already alluded to this.
I would say like the one thing that surprised me the most, the show I did not want to watch, even though HBO kept shoving trailers down my throat every time I turned it on, was Succession. I thought that show looked miserable. Succession. I thought like there's no way I'm going to watch this.
I agree. Yeah,
this is just
the premise is so bad.
Horrible people being horrible to each other. I don't want to watch it. I don't need that kind of negativity. Yeah. I enjoyed this more than any show I think this year. And
it's your number one. Yeah,
I think it's definitely top 5. But it's technically not a 2020 show because it just won awards this year. When it racked up a bunch of Emmys, people actually started to take it seriously. So we kind of just binged 2 seasons of Succession quickly.
Yeah. Kieran Culkin's performance and character in that show is just like, I'm just there for it the whole time. It's what keeps me in the most.
I'd say this show is as violent as Game of Thrones, but just verbally, like it's just as bad.
Yeah, totally. You watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel this year as well?
Yeah,
that's a highlight for me too.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know if people caught on to that yet. It's such a good show. I just love the quick talking, like the dialogue, and it's just like so over the top. But also the cinematography for a TV show is like so difficult. I've seen like behind the scenes like how they shoot this thing, and it's trying so hard, but they pull it off. And especially doing a lot of like period stuff, so 50s and 60s. That one's how many seasons is that now? 3, 4?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that is a great show. It's like it's kind of like an Oscar Wilde play in terms of how like snappy and smart some of the characters are, how like quick the dialogue is.
It feels
like no one talks like this. No one can be this smart in the moment.
It's like the His Girl Friday kind of quick fire dialogue. It also feels like a Coen Brothers movie a little bit with some of their comedies.
Yeah, or like Gilmore Girls kind of has that kind of vibe to it as well.
Well, the same creator. I'd never watched Gilmore Girls, but Amy Sherman Palladino.
Yeah, I haven't seen much either. But
is the showrunner and creator of this, so that's the reason for that.
It's like me saying that, like, it's Kafka-esque when it's written by Kafka. Squid in the Whale.
Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Any other standout shows for you this year, Chris? Unorthodox.
I did watch that.
Yeah, that was Netflix.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, that was good. Again,
I
think it was only like 4 hours, which is great.
Yeah, it's pretty short. Hey?
It's about a girl, leaving her super Orthodox Jewish family and community in New York and escaping to Germany.
Yeah.
I consider it a movie, almost. I mean, I think it kind of fits the bill if you consider it a 4-hour movie.
That's true. That's a good way to put it, I think. Did either of you guys watch John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch this year?
I haven't even heard of that. What is it?
So John Mulaney is the stand-up comedian.
I've heard of him.
Who's got a bunch of specials on Netflix. I really like him. He's one of my favorite comics. And it's just like a 1-hour special with kind of like a Sesame Street vibe with like these adolescent kids that he hangs out with. And there's like songs and it's like musical. It is just really funny, and like some of the songs from it have really, really stuck with me. I think about them almost every day. There's one kid who sings about like the only thing he eats is a plain plate of noodles with a little bit of butter, and there's like a whole like song about it, and it's just it's awesome.
It sounds strange.
I recommend it.
I don't think I can quite understand it without like seeing it.
It's like off the wall comedy meets Sesame Street kind of.
Cool. I wanted to bring up Devs, which I think is definitely my top 5 from this year. Do you guys see that on Hulu?
No, I haven't.
It's from Alex Garland.
I've seen nothing on Hulu.
Oh, right. VPN. Devs it's a really heady sci-fi from Alex Garland. He directed or wrote Sunshine, 28 Days Later, Ex Machina, Annihilation. Those are all his films, and
I like those. Yeah.
He writes and directs all 8 episodes of this thing. So again, it feels like an extended film. It's got Nick Offerman kind of playing against type. Nick Offerman is he's the head of Devs, this company that it's really unclear at the beginning of the show what they do. And it's sort of a mystery. It's really about like quantum computing and predicting the future, and I just loved it.
Minority Report.
Yeah, kind of like that. Stuff. I would highly recommend that if you haven't got a chance. Also on Hulu, The Great, which is based on Catherine the Great and her marriage to Peter III.
I watched some of that.
It's written by Tony McNamara, who wrote The Favorite, the Yorgos Lanthimos film.
Oh, yeah.
Which one of my favorite films from a couple of years ago. And it's just like 10 hours of that. It's just like really biting
awesome.
Commentary. Again, not a kind of thing I thought I would enjoy. Really enjoyed the hell out of this. Elle Fanning and Nicholas Hoult are the main actors.
Believe it or not, in New Zealand, some of the platforms had some of the shows you're listing right now. So I watched The Great on that.
Okay.
But a weird thing happened with the sequencing because Rachel watched it first and then I went to watch it after. And I think I started on like episode 4, but I didn't know that.
Oh.
And so I just actually was like, I'm lost after like 3 episodes, so I didn't finish it. But maybe I'll go back.
It almost doesn't matter. It's kind of episodic. There is sort of a through line to the story, but you can sit down and watch one episode and just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah. Cool.
Now recording this, usually the Oscars are announced in early February, right? Like 6 weeks from now. Like, any thoughts on like what do you think? Like Mank, did you see any of those like films you think that will be in contention, or what are your thoughts on how superhero movies will do in context with some of the other technical awards, et cetera, et cetera?
I almost tend not to think in terms of Oscars because I honestly don't care. I can't even tell you what won the Oscar last year. But, Parasite, yeah, there you go, great film.
Which I saw this
year.
That's my favorite movie that I saw this year. Yeah.
It's
hands down.
such a weird year for movies, and I mean, literally, I'm a movie guy. By this time of year, would have already seen like 50 films in the theater, at least. I try to go at least once a
Yeah.
week, and I kind of enjoyed the
Yeah.
whole spectrum. I just of what cinema is, from the superhero stuff down to the smallest independent. Um, I mean, I know we're kind of running out of time, but I can give you a few that I think were just great.
Yeah.
My favorite film of this year is First Cow by Kelly Reichardt. You guys familiar with Kelly Reichardt
I've
at
heard
all?
good things about that.
She's very, very like small lo-fi filmmaker. She's like Wendy and Lucy, Meek's Cut Off, Certain Women. Those are some of her previous films. She worked with
Old Joy.
Old Joy with
Will
Will
Oldham.
Oldham. Yeah, she's worked with
Bonnie Prince Billy. Okay.
she's worked with
seen that.
Michelle Williams a lot. But this is
Yeah.
just a film about settling the Pacific Northwest. I think it takes place in Oregon, and it's literally about how hard the life is up there and how miserable. And then this rich man moves in and he imports a cow, and suddenly these two guys have an idea to start milking that cow and baking biscuits and like with the milk from the cow. And this doesn't sound like it's usually a dramatic movie, but it's about the friendship of these two guys, and it's literally that phrase like, why buy the cow if you can get the milk for free? That they start making these amazing confections, and it's just a drama about how that all plays out, and it's hard for me to describe it because it's very slow, very kind of quiet movie. I really want to see that again. I think that was my favorite.
Cool.
I'm thinking of Ending Things, the Charlie Kaufman film. Did you guys have a chance to see that one?
I did. I was gonna bring this up too. What's your feeling about it, Chris? Did you enjoy this film? Did you enjoy the very specific David Foster Wallace conversation in the car?
I did. I laughed.
About brief interviews with hideous men.
Yeah. That's not the reason I like the film a lot, but I'm just predisposed to Charlie Kaufman's sort of way of thinking about things.
Yeah, me too.
This has like just a very relatable, miserable drive, a conversation between two people on a drive in the snow, and it's just like that just doesn't happen on the screen very often. But it's just very honest.
Yeah.
We actually just talked about his book, right? So he wrote a novel this year as well called Aunt Kind. And, you know, the book Aunt Kind reminds me a little bit of Synecdoche, New York, as well as The Orchid Thief, right? An adaptation. And part of it is set in Florida. And, you know, I really love adaptation. Like, if you go back to him as a screenwriter,
Me too.
I think that was probably the first thing that I saw of his that I loved. Being John Malkovich is up there, but like when you look at The Orchid Thief, which he was trying to adapt into a movie, it was a failure, right? It's not really like, I love the book, but it's not a great book. Like Susan Orlean, have you guys read this book, The Orchid Thief?
No, I haven't.
Like it made me into an orchid buyer. Like I still raise orchids. I have an orchid that's
Do you really?
blooming right now. And because I love this book so much, that's why I bought orchids. And like for Charlie Kaufman to try to you could tell like he loved this book, right? And like for a guy who loved the book to try to adapt it into a movie, he could see like about 50% of it. And like I feel like that with a lot of his movies is like he can see about like 50% of what it should be. And then like the other half is like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Who cares? I don't know. You know, there's a lot of that in Synecdoche, New York, right? Where it's like it's almost there, but it's like you can only go so far with that. That's what I find so frustrating about him. Like, you know, I'm thinking of Ending Things. I love movies where it's like two people talking, right? Like, or just talking.
Yeah.
Nothing happens, just dialogue. I love shit like that, but it is, I don't know, 50% of the time a failure.
But I think failures are often more interesting. Like there are like songs that, you know, it has a great melody, then they kind of screw it up. And it's like by cutting it up, it makes it more interesting. It's not finished. Things were unsatisfying and it makes you want to return to them again and again until you're satisfied. So that's a weird way to think
I
of
like
it.
that way of thinking, Chris.
But
No, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Yeah, the I'm thinking of ending things did get some like a lot of Twitter stuff just because of the Wallace references, right? Like,
I gotta say, I felt really cringy about that whole Wallace section. Like, I just something about it just made me recoil a little bit. Like, it was way too on the nose, you know.
I feel like that way about anyone doing a David Foster Wallace reference in a movie
totally.
now.
It used to be exciting for me in like 2012, and now it's just like,
there was a funny one that just happened. Was Big Mouth? Do you guys know the show Big Mouth?
I do know that show. I haven't watched the most recent season though.
There's like a great David Foster Wallace reference in the news.
Is it a Big Red Sun reference based on the themes of that show?
It's a bandana reference. But...
okay.
Well, I think I'm thinking of ending things is it's like sort of made up of a lot of references. So, and I think part of the fun of it is picking them out.
Yeah.
And like I didn't get a lot of them.
Oh yeah, like that whole sequence about where he's just quoting a famous movie review for like 5 minutes. Do you know this part?
Was that Pauline Kael?
Yeah, he's talking about Pauline Kael.
I don't know, maybe.
Pauline Kael?
Yeah, I just read about it in like reviews, and I was like, that's a pretty deep cut to like quote a famous movie review for a long time.
There's a shot of his room where it's just filled with all these things that he's referencing. It's just like you just pan across the bookshelves and you see like, all these books, and he's just like, he's just daring you to find, to spot it, the references. And like even the last the speech he gives at the end is the exact same speech from A Beautiful Mind that Russell Crowe's character gives in the end.
Oh, really?
It's like not even trying to hide it, but it's so I think people can watch this movie and see different things in it, and some of it, if you don't know the references, it's going to pass over you, but if you do, you're going to kind of grin.
Yeah.
But it's like, can I ask, like a life, you're just kind of made up of references, aren't you? Everything you've read and the sort of language that we have together, like having read the same things or watched the same shows, and like how much of a person are you really, or are you just a pile of references? And he's...
I think I'm gonna just go cry in the corner after hearing you say that, because like that just really landed for me.
That's kind of what this movie's about, and he's coming to terms with all the art and things that he's been passionate about in his life, and he's trying to just like make this perfect woman, right? Like the woman in the movie is sort of a conglomeration of women he's dated in the past, and isn't a real character. But he's just like talking references at them to find some kind of connection, and you just can't find the connection with another human. And it's deeply sad, but it's also like very true.
Yeah. Okay, well, you putting it in that perspective gives me like a new interest in rewatching it with that lens in mind, because I think that's a cool angle.
I mean that to me is very real, right? Like I actually love that idea. Because I do the same thing, and we were talking earlier about influences, and like Don DeLillo, like good artists steal, right? Like if you want to make your own movie, you're going to go and take a bunch of other references from other people and put them together, and people who appreciate those references should like your work. And the same thing is like if you're going out on a date and you don't know someone and you're like, hey, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this, and they're feeding stuff at you, you're looking for a connection, right? Like you're like, oh, if they're into this thing, like honestly, I'm not looking for a date, but if someone wants to talk about field notes and pencils, like I'm in, or I mean, and to me, that's more where I'm at right now than like talking about Infinite Jest. Like if you talk about Infinite Jest, boom, you're my people, I love you, whatever. But like right now, like if you want to talk about a bunch of other stuff, I will meet you where you're at. I think there's a lot to that actually, and I think the failure, what you just said, Chris, like the failure to do that is like deeply sad, or like the misconnection. It's like ships passing in the night,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I brought it way down here. Should I find a comedy to talk about?
Oh, well, no.
I got one.
On that note,
did you guys watch What We Do in the Shadows on FX, the vampire mockumentary TV show?
Haven't seen the show yet, and I know I should. Seen the film.
It's great. It's really good. I watched all of it this year. I loved it. It's based on the Taika Waititi movie.
New Zealand.
Cameo.
New Zealand.
New Zealand's most famous director. Did like Hunt for the Wilder People and Boy and Thor Ragnarok. Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a great show. Did y'all watch Schitt's Creek this year, which destroyed at the Emmys?
That's
like won everything for comedy.
That's my biggest cultural blind
kind of
spot.
ridiculous.
I have not seen it.
It's good. I recommend it. If you want something to warm your heart in 2020, Schitt's Creek will do it. It's kind of like Ted Lasso in that kind of sincerity mode, I would say.
I watched a little bit of it. I would say it's my style of humor. I do think it's funny. A lot of people said it took them a while to get into it. It did not take me a while to get into it. Like, I actually think like the characters, Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, I'm sold. Like, I love it.
Oh yeah, if you're a fan of like Christopher Guest movies, like Best in Show, Mighty Wind, like you will instantly land with a cast because they're brilliant. I found that the show only got better as it went on. It's kind of like a Godspeed You Black Emperor song in that way. And by season 5, it was just like rolling so hard, and every episode was so great, and it ended really well. So check that out. Canadian Pride. It's one of the best things Canada's put out in a while.
I guess I have to watch it now.
Shit.
We don't put out a lot of great television, but like I'm pretty happy that that's ours. We can claim that one. Did you guys watch Detroiters?
Never heard of it.
Don't know what that is.
Tim Robinson is the guy who made I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson.
Oh, do you like that show? Is that good?
I really like that show. I've never talked about it before.
You made us watch it when we were in Austin last year.
Podcast.
We just had to sit down and watch this.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I'm fucking with
So
it.
it's that guy and Sam Richardson, and they run an ad company out of Detroit, and it's only 2 seasons long. It's quite short, and it is brilliant. It's really funny. Strong recommend if anyone's living in Michigan, in Detroit right now. I was texting with Corey Baldoff about it. Lots of geographical references, local humor stuff. I think my favorite piece of TV this year, though, was The Last Dance, the Chicago Bulls Michael Jordan documentary.
I did watch that.
I loved it. It took me back to my like adolescence because I was so into basketball when I was like almost a teenager.
Me too.
And it was good.
90s basketball.
It was an incredible piece of nostalgia, but also of filmmaking. I think that the way that they told the drama of it, like I was, as you know, Dave, I'm a big baseball card collector, but at the time,
do know that.
At the time, I was also collecting basketball cards starting in 1986, and I remember following the Chicago Bulls. It was just like expected. Jordan's going to win the championship, and I guess as a kid, I didn't understand the drama of each season as much as the way that they told it in that show. Totally. And it really was like, if he was not injured, if the team was right, if everything was okay, he was going to win the championship. Like, they were going to win the championship. And, my kids who have never seen an NBA game in person, they don't know jack shit about basketball. they really got into the drama of it. And like, we watched it. That was a long season. It's like 10 episodes, I would say at least.
I think so. 8 or 10, yeah.
I mean, we watched it all like night after night after night and got into it. And so I would say, like, even if you think you're not into it, like, again, I love Infinite Jest. I'm not a big tennis person, right? Like, I don't know all the rules of tennis. I never played tennis, but I appreciate it. I think people would appreciate The Last Dance. Jordan, Pippen, Rodman. You get Tony Kukoc in there. You get Phil Jackson. Who is the general manager guy, the little short guy?
Oh, Jerry something?
Yeah, Jerry. Yeah. You get that guy.
So how do you build drama if you know the Bulls are going to win every year and that the best player is going to be the best player every year?
But they don't
That's a
win
great
every
question.
year. But they don't
That's
win
a
every
great
year.
question.
It's
Yeah.
phenomenal. It's up in the air, right? It's a question. They go back to his like college days and him being drafted, and the Bulls were absolute garbage in the early 1980s. And it sort of just assumes you know nothing, which a lot of, like I say, my kids, they know nothing about this.
And like, if you don't have the Wikipedia page open of like the '90s Bulls, and you don't remember like what exact years they won the championship in, like you're probably gonna enjoy this without relatively spoiler free.
Well, they didn't win 6 or 7 in a row. There was a break, right? Like they won 3 in a row. There was a break. They won 3 in a row.
Yeah, something like that.
But they played they played the best of the best, right? Like in the early stage, they played Larry Bird. Later on, they played
Magic Johnson,
Shaq.
Shaq, Penny Hardaway.
It is incredible. Like just the access that those people got, the filmmakers got to that footage. And I love the later interviews where Jordan is sitting there with like a huge glass of scotch and
of tequila,
a cigar. Like, it's great footage, man. It's like absolute great tape they got.
And they're just like handing him an iPad and they're like, check out what this guy said about you. And so he watches it for the first time.
He just laughs.
And he's like, Isaiah Thomas, fuck you, man. Like, that's not what happened. Like, it's really funny.
I totally forgot.
So there's
I
like some off the cuff reaction stuff. Yeah, it's good. Chris, a show that I think would appeal to you if you haven't seen it is Dark on Netflix, the German sci-fi drama. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't. That's on my list of things to check out this year too. Yeah,
I watched that this year during lockdown, and it was great.
Did it finish?
Really
Is it over? Is it still going on?
I think it is. I think there's like there maybe is going to be a season 4 down the line, but I think it's mostly wrapped.
Okay.
It ends pretty cleanly, so.
Is that the one that starts out at a nuclear power plant?
Yes.
I did.
The image is like a cave mouth and like a boy in a yellow jacket walking in.
Yeah, I did watch the first season of this show, and I just found it very weird and depressing and sad.
That sounds like it's right up my alley.
But it's also got a lot of like mind fuckery, time travel.
It is a mind fuck.
Stuff.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah.
So if you're into that kind of stuff,
I thought it was Norwegian. Is it German?
It's German. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Small town in Germany.
Whatever. Yeah, it's fine.
Did anyone watch the adaptation of Normal People this year, the Sally Rooney novel?
I didn't watch that.
Yeah, I watched it, but I haven't read the book yet.
Okay.
But I thought the show was great.
You know what? The book and the movie, I actually like the show better than the book. The book for me is just all right for me, dog. Like,
but the show was better.
I could visualize it
or
better.
Just same.
Yeah, No, I actually did like the characters. I thought the actors were phenomenal. I mean, the two
really good performances.
The two main characters especially were great. I did like that show a lot. Was it on Hulu? I forget. I think it was on Hulu.
I don't know. I think I watched
it was
on like
Hulu.
a New Zealand platform. So
I enjoyed it. I mean, if you like Irish, like horny teenagers, you'll love it.
That's one of the things, right? Like it feels kind of weird and voyeuristic to be like, especially as a high school teacher, and it's about like teenagers exploring their sexuality, and you're like, I don't know if I'd like want to see that, man. It's like. It's a bit, bit weird.
I didn't write it. She wrote it. Whatever. It's fine. But
and the actors are in their 20s, so it's not as gross as it otherwise could be.
I didn't Wikipedia them, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, the guy who played the main male protagonist is allegedly dating Phoebe Bridgers right now.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Who we're going to talk about with Grace.
I do like Phoebe
soon.
Bridgers a lot, so she's great.
Me too.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to talk at length about that.
We haven't talked three of us together, but there's a consensus here. I bought 3 albums this year. That was it. Phoebe Bridgers was one of them.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
Sold.
Excellent.
Sold.
Chris, any final thoughts on TV and film this year? Anything we haven't mentioned that you wanted to get to?
2 more films I think people should check out. One is The Nest. It's directed by Sean Durkin. He did Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, about a woman leaving a cult. That was his first film.
Yeah, that was a good film. I like that.
His follow-up film, which is like 8 or 9 years later, it stars Carrie Coon and Jude Law, and they moved from the United States back to the UK for his job. And it's just kind of this adult drama that doesn't get made anymore. It's just like adults having adult problems for 2 hours. And like a lot of movies in the 80s were kind of like this, things with like William Hurt in them, But this is this movie's kind of rip your heart out. But it's just very good, very honest. It's kind of about like what life can do to you when you're just trying to succeed, like you're trying too hard, It's very
story of my life.
It's your biggest flaw, Dave. You just try too hard.
I really do.
And my other one is Kajillionaire from Miranda July. I absolutely love her. If you're not familiar, she's a performance artist, writer, filmmaker, artist. She does everything. And it's just a film about...
She did You and Me and Everyone We Know, right?
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
And the film called The Future a few years ago. But this one is just about like a family of grifters, and the main character, played by Evan Rachel Wood, is grown up in this family, and all they do is just run scams. That's how they get along. And it's such a dysfunctional family, and it's about her kind of growing out of this. It's a weird comedy. When I was done watching this with my wife, I just turned to her and said, "No one else would have made this movie. This is just absolutely a Miranda July movie." And if you know her work, you kind of know what that means. Yeah,
she's got a very distinct aesthetic.
Yeah.
Sensibility. Hey, yeah. Cool. I actually saw like a screenshot of this around somewhere on the internet this week, and I didn't say what movie it was from, and I was like, it was a picture of Evan Rachel Wood in the grocery store, and I was like, I feel like I've seen this, but I don't think I have. But it's something like that I would watch.
Yeah, like, definitely recommend
just
it.
Just telegraphed that to me.
It's just such a weird year because the big tentpole movies didn't come out, and mostly the things that hit the home screens were these small indie films, and that's kind of what I like anyway. I still go see a lot of those.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a pretty good year for films. I have a longer list, but I'm not going to get into much more. But I still think it was a good year for cinema, despite not being able to see. I think
yeah,
only saw a few.
Yeah. As someone who like really loves the cinematic experience of going to the movies and like sitting in the theater in the dark with other strangers for 2 hours, like you're still satisfied.
Well, as a home viewer, yeah. But the weirdest experience this year was actually going to see Tenet in the theaters, because I lived in Arizona, and that's one of the few places that didn't have many lockdown rules. And so I picked a day where there were only like 4 other people in the theater, built for like 200 people. And so it was almost a private screening. I mean, it's taking a little bit of a risk, but I felt like it was less risky than going to the grocery store. You encounter far fewer people.
Right.
So it's really strange to watch a movie like that with no audience, where you're almost the only people, and there's not literally, it's so loud because there's not enough human bodies in the audience to like soak up the sound,
to absorb the sound.
Yeah, it's so weird. But again, this movie,
that's weird.
I felt like I had to see it, but also it's not that great. It's a sort of Christopher Nolan is ventured into self-parody territory and doesn't realize it. It's just kind of lacking heart. It's like a math equation, technical exercise. It's kind of interesting. I think he kind of balances the equation, so it kind of works out, but I just don't care. But I people will get to see that pretty soon. I think that's going to be dropped for the streaming pretty soon, but if it's the kind of movie you kind of feel like you have to see in the theater, and it was such a disappointing experience to take a little bit of a risk and then still, not see a very good movie.
Yeah. And that's a pretty good summation of 2020, I think, existentially speaking, as well as filmically. Well, Chris Ayers, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about what you watched on the screens this year. We really appreciate hearing from you. And I look forward to doing some of this in person with you real soon.
All right.
Hopefully, if the year goes well.
Let's say about 4 or 5 months on the optimistic point.
That sounds about right. All right.
Thanks for talking, Chris. Good to see you, man.
All right, you too, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dave.
It's super windy here, and I think that my neighbor's trash bin just blew over, and it sounded like a fucking trash truck crashed into my house. And so I had to go investigate, but I think it's just the wind. If there's another weird noise, I might be dead. No, I'm ready whenever you guys are. We'll still sync it, but I'm just 9 minutes in. We'll just trim all of this. This is just all bullshit.